There is nothing new about the latest NBA champion. The Larry O'Brien Trophy is in familiar hands, and the Golden State Warriors won it in incredible fashion. They didn't just prove the odds wrong, they proved everyone wrong. After Kevin Durant got injured and went to Brooklyn, Klay Thompson suffered 2 potential career-ending injuries, Steph Curry broke his hand, and Draymond Green looked washed, the Warriors dynasty was over. Or at least that's what people thought. This is how the Warriors built their dynasty from the ground up, hit rock bottom, and then resurrected the dynasty to win it all. Let's start all the way back to the 2009 NBA draft. The Warriors drafted the Davidson guard with the 7th overall pick. In the first part of the 2010 season, the Warriors had a rough start, starting the season with a 13-37 record. And during that stretch, Curry would put out this tweet: "Promise to all Warrior fans, we will figure this thing out. If it's the last thing we do, we will figure it out." We now know that aged beautifully, but it seemed really unlikely at the time. The Warriors finished as the 13th seed in the West, and Steph Curry was the runner-up for the Rookie of the Year. In the next season, Steph Curry would suffer a bunch of minor ankle injuries that would add up to him needing surgery. He would still improve as a player, but the star of the show was Monte Ellis. He emerged as a 24-point-per-game scorer and led the Warriors in the 80 games that he played. They ended the season with a 36-46 record, landing them the 12th seed in the West. And in the draft, the Warriors selected Klay Thompson with the 11th pick. And although there were other players like Jonas Valanciunas and Kawhi Leonard available, Golden State took a chance on Thompson, even though it would be tough to balance the backcourt with Ellis and Curry as emerging stars. And so the 2012 season began. Halfway into the season, the Warriors offered Steph Curry to the Bucks for Andrew Bogut, but the Bucks declined. They were too concerned about Steph's ankles. So the Warriors offered Monte Ellis, and they accepted the trade. Many Warrior fans were disappointed with the trade because they kept an injury-prone player rather than an all-star level talent. And in the season, Curry saw more ankle injuries, and he only played 26 games for the season. The Warriors finished near the bottom of the Western Conference once again, and many concerns were rising in the Warriors community. In the NBA draft, they selected Harrison Barnes with the 7th pick, and took a shot at Draymond Green in the 2nd round. And they would also sign Steph Curry to a 4-year, $44 million contract, which was very risky at the time considering his ankles. And in the next season, Stephen Curry finally took the leap everyone was waiting for. He averaged 23 points, 4 rebounds, and 7 assists a game on insane 45-45-90 shooting splits. And best of all, Curry only missed 4 games in the entire season, and that helped him break Ray Allen's record for the most 3-pointers made in a season with 272. He did all that and wasn't named an All-Star. Klay Thompson was solidifying his name as a sharpshooter and promising defender, and David Lee was their second option, averaging 19 points a game. The Warriors finally made the playoffs, landing them the 6th seed in the West. The young upcoming Warriors were matched up with a veteran Nuggets team. The Warriors would win the series in 6 games, and Steph Curry led the way. In the second round, they lost to the Spurs in 6 games, and they did put up a fight, but it wasn't enough to take down the team that would represent the West in the finals. The Warriors finally had a taste of the postseason success, and they would be back next year. In the offseason, the Warriors got Andre Iguodala. In the 2014 season, Steph Curry took another jump and would get his first All-Star appearance. He wouldn't get snubbed this time, and he was an All-Star starter. Klay Thompson also took a jump, averaging 18 points a night on insane shooting, and Draymond Green turned into a solid player off the bench. They would finish with 51 wins and would match up against the Clippers in the first round. The Warriors would lose in 7 games, but the Warriors showed a lot of promise. In the offseason, the Warriors fired head coach Mark Jackson and replaced him with Steve Kerr. In the 2014-15 season, the Warriors won a franchise record of 67 wins. Curry would win the MVP and broke his own record for the most 3-pointers made in a season. Klay Thompson would average 22 points a game, and Draymond Green made the all-defensive first team. This was the first year where the trios of Steph, Klay, and Draymond were the clear Warriors' big 3. They would head into the postseason as the number 1 seed and plowed through the Pelicans in a sweep. They beat the Grizzlies in 6 games and then the Rockets in 5. The Warriors got through the Western Conference while only losing 3 games in total. In the finals, they were matched up against LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Kevin Love had suffered an injury and wouldn't be available for the finals. And in Game 1 of the finals, Kyrie Irving suffered a knee injury that ruled him out for the rest of the series. This gave the Warriors a big advantage, but they found themselves down 2-1 in the series. The Warriors would win 3 games in a row to finish the series and the season. Steph Curry led the Warriors to the first championship since 1975 and averaged 26, 5, and 6. He played amazing, but didn't win the Finals MVP. Andre Iguodala was awarded for his defense, doing an amazing job on LeBron James. The best thing about this season wasn't just that they won the championship, but it was that they hadn't reached their ceiling yet. Steph Curry was 26, and Klay and Draymond were only 24. The Warriors would be back for more. And that's exactly what they did. The Warriors finished the 2016 season with the best record in NBA history with 73-9. And Steph Curry would win the first ever unanimous MVP. He averaged 30 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and led the league in steals on 50, 45, 91 shooting splits. He had an incredible year, but he was looking for a championship to cap off one of the best regular season performances in the history of the league. Steph, Klay, and Draymond fit perfectly together, and together they led one of the best teams of all time. In the first 2 series, Steph Curry played a combined 4 games. He dealt with minor ankle injuries and knee injuries, but that didn't matter thanks to the rest of the Warriors. Both series ended in 5 games, and Steph Curry would be back to face the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals. Right off the bat, KD and Westbrook outplayed Steph and Klay, and just like that, the Warriors were down 3-1. Golden State would come back in dominating fashion, with Curry averaging 33 and Klay averaging 30 in the last 3 games. The Warriors were on a roll and seemed unstoppable, but there was a familiar team waiting for them in the finals, the Cavaliers. The Warriors kept the momentum going, and they were up 3-1 against the Cavs. However, near the end of Game 4, Draymond was given a flagrant foul for this, and would be suspended for Game 5. The Cavs would win Game 5 in a dominating fashion, but Andrew Bogut suffered a knee injury that would sideline him for the series. The Cavs would also take the next game, and the series would go to 7 games. And Game 7 went down to the wire and was defined by 2 iconic plays.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Irving and Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again.
The Warriors were 1 game short from capping off one of the best seasons in NBA history, but they couldn't get the job done. They would be the first team ever to blow a 3-1 lead in the NBA Finals, and Steph would have a very underwhelming series, averaging 23 points a game on 40% shooting. In the offseason, the Warriors signed Kevin Durant while having only to let go of Harrison Barnes and Andrew Bogut's contracts. In 2017, they assembled what many would consider the greatest team of all time. They cruised all the way to the championship and went 16-1 in the playoffs. KD won the Finals MVP, and as long as this team stays together, no one would have a chance of beating them, right? In 2018, the Warriors cruised through the regular season, but the Houston Rockets had the better record, and it was them that they had to beat to advance to the finals. What seemed like an impossible team to beat, the Rockets were 1 game away from beating them, being up 3-2 in the series. The Warriors would win Game 6 in a blowout, and in Game 7, D'Antoni's game plan had backfired on him. The Rockets would miss 27 straight 3-pointers, and the Warriors would overcome the deficit. They faced a familiar Cavs team in the finals and won in a sweep. In the offseason, the Warriors got DeMarcus Cousins, the best center in the league, but he was coming off an Achilles tear. In 2019, the Warriors were the same team, but they were very beat up. A calf injury had been bothering KD for the playoffs, Cousins had a quad injury, and Iguodala had a hamstring injury. They got past the Clippers in round 1, but in Game 6 of round 2, the Warriors were tied 2-2 against the Rockets, and Durant tore his Achilles. The Warriors won Game 5, but they still had to win 1 more without Kevin Durant. In Game 6, it looked like Houston was going to take it, as Curry had 0 points in the first half, but that didn't last too long. He took over the game in the second half, dropping 33 points and leading the Warriors to win the game by 5. Kevin Durant would also miss the Western Conference Finals, and the red-hot Trailblazers were up next. And the story of this series was Steph Curry, as he averaged 37 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists on 47, 43, 94 shooting splits. The Warriors swept the Blazers, and the Raptors were the team to beat in the finals. The Raptors were up 3-1, and Steph even had a 47-point game, but it was in a loss. Klay played great, but sat out for Game 3, and with all the injuries, the Raptors were just the better team. Even though he wasn't fully healthy, KD came back for Game 5 because if he didn't, he knew the Warriors would lose. He had a hot start, scoring 11 quick points and all 3 three-pointers, but early in the second quarter, he re-injured his Achilles. His contribution, even though it was only for 1 quarter, helped the Warriors win the game by 1. In Game 6, Klay Thompson was having a great game, but landed hard on a dunk attempt in the third quarter. He tore his ACL, but as he was walking out of the game, he came back and sunk 2 free throws. After he went out, the Warriors' hopes were gone. The Warriors lost the series, and they weren't prepared for what was going to happen next. In the offseason, Kevin Durant signed with the Brooklyn Nets to try to win on his own, and Golden State got D'Angelo Russell in the sign-and trade. And they also lost Iguodala and Cousins, but would also draft some kid named Jordan Poole with the 28th pick. In the 2020 season, we knew the Warriors would be bad, but not this bad. Steph Curry suffered a broken hand and only played 5 games, and D'Angelo Russell didn't look as good as he did on the Nets. So the Warriors traded him to the Timberwolves and got back Andrew Wiggins and a first-round pick. They finished the season with the worst record in the NBA, winning only 15 games. This is the point where most fans lost hope in the Warriors. Kevin Durant left, Steph and Klay were out with major injuries, Draymond looked washed, and the Warriors didn't have good role players. In the offseason, the Warriors landed the 2nd overall pick and drafted James Wiseman. In 2021, the Warriors looked a lot better with Curry back, but they weren't a threat. Narratives started popping up that he wasn't able to carry a team, and they heavily doubted this era of the Warriors. Klay Thompson was almost ready to come back, but on November 18th,
worst possible news for the Warriors. Klay Thompson has suffered a full tear of his right Achilles. You're looking at a 8 to 10 month rehab. He will miss the entire season.
Klay Thompson now had to come back from 2 career-threatening injuries. And then James Wiseman got a knee injury that would sideline him for the rest of the season. Curry had an incredible season nonetheless, averaging 32, 6 and 6 on 48, 42, 92 shooting splits while being double-teamed every night. He carried the Warriors to the 8th seed in the West, but they needed to win the play-in tournament to make it to the playoffs. The Warriors lost the game to a 3 from LeBron, and then lost the following game in overtime. Even though the Warriors had an above 500 record and finished as the 8th seed in the West, they didn't make the playoffs, and more narratives began to form. How would Steph Curry lead the team to a championship if he couldn't even lead them to the playoffs? In the offseason, the Warriors got Iguodala back on the team, but they also got Otto Porter Jr. and drafted Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody. In the 2022 season, the Warriors got off to a hot 18-2 start, and Jordan Poole had taken a huge leap. The Warriors were looking great, and Curry was the front runner for the MVP, all while Klay Thompson and James Wiseman hadn't returned to the team yet. The Warriors had a lot of young talent, with Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, the number 2 overall pick in James Wiseman, and 2 lottery picks from the recent draft in Kuminga and Moody. Many people thought that they should trade these pieces for another star, but the Warriors wanted to keep them. Steph Curry finally got the record for the most three-pointers made of all time, and went through a huge shooting slump for the rest of the regular season. Klay Thompson was back on the team just before the playoffs, but the trio of Curry, Klay, and Draymond hardly got any time to mesh back together since the almost 3-year drought. In the first round, the Warriors beat the Nuggets in 5 games, then the Grizzlies in 6 games, and then the Mavericks in 5. Heading into the finals, the Boston Celtics were heavily favored to win the finals according to ESPN. And I don't know how this stat was made, and I don't think these were the real chances of winning the championship, but it does go to show how the Warriors were no easy matchup. They had the number 1 ranked defense and offense in the second half of the season and kept that going throughout the playoffs. The Celtics came out with a 2-1 lead to start the series. This shocked a lot of people as they were coming off back-to-back 7-game series while the Warriors had an easier time. But the Warriors figured something out, because they won 3 straight games to win the championship. Steph Curry led the way, averaging 31 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists a game on 48% from the field and 44% from 3. Andrew Wiggins came up big on both ends, and Draymond had an awful start but ended the series on a good note. Curry won the Finals MVP and cemented his legacy forever. Things need to go your way to win the championship, and the best case scenario didn't even show up for the Warriors. Klay Thompson's postseason performances was underwhelming, Draymond Green wasn't good either, and there wasn't anyone that exceeded their expectations. We all knew what Steph Curry was capable of, and Andrew Wiggins played like that earlier in the year, and that's why he was voted as an all-star starter. The Warriors just played their game, and it turned out great. The Dynasty was put on pause, and the Warriors made sure to press play. The Dynasty is still continuing, and still isn't over. The Warriors had the same trio of Curry, Klay, and Draymond, but before, they had the vets to lead them. They had Iguodala, Livingston, David West, Barbosa, Zaza, David Lee, and Andrew Bogut, but this time, they were the vets. They got to pay it forward and show the younger guys how it's done, like Wiggins, Poole, GP2, Kuminga, Moody, Wiseman. Steph Curry is a great finals performer, even with the 2016 meltdown. During his first 3 championships, he played great but just didn't go home with a finals MVP. Steph's critics held this against him as it's the only major offensive award that he hasn't won. But now that he unanimously won the 2022 Finals MVP, that argument is debunked. And while Kevin Durant left the Warriors to prove he could win a championship without a super team, he actually left the perfect situation. He and Kyrie were the face of the franchise, and then the Nets traded for James Harden. With this, many fans considered them a super team, defeating the purpose of KD winning a championship outside of a super team. Going into the 2022 season, the Nets and Lakers were the clear favorites to win it all, and although the Brooklyn Nets lost James Harden, they got swept in the first round. It's interesting that Brooklyn got swept by Boston, the team the Warriors had to beat to win the championship. KD leaving plus other factors were why people thought the dynasty was over, and they proved everyone wrong. They lost their 2-time Finals MVP and still got it done. The Warriors made 6 straight finals with the same core, 2 of them with Kevin Durant and 4 without. This dynasty is up there with one of the greatest dynasties of all time. Steph Curry won the Finals MVP, Klay looks good coming back from the injury, Wiggins went from bust to big time, and Draymond is just a dog on the court that not everybody likes, but he's a champ once again. And take a look at Steph Curry's face from the 2017 and 2018 championships. His face shows pure happiness and gratefulness because he knows how hard it is to win a championship. But the look on his face after winning last season says so much more. That face sums up how hard the past few years have been for Golden State and how hard they had to work to be back on top. The championship was the best way to further cement Steph Curry's legacy and the Warriors dynasty in the history books. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, leave a like as it does help me a lot. I read every single comment, so let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.